Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to KGX to the Z TV. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe. International break. You know what that means. Content creators looking for content. But yeah, we're coming off of what? The second international break already. And I think there's one planned for November. Obviously, this year being a World Cup year, we've got um, World Cup qualifiers still going on. I know South America's wrapped up. North America's CONCACAF is still going through some of it, although the host nations, U.S., Mexico, Canada, are um, already qualified for it as the host nations. Big up Jamaica. Hopefully, we can sneak in there as well with those extra slots that aren't going to be taken up by the traditional powerhouses in CONCACAF. Asian qualifiers going on, African qualifiers. A lot of countries have already qualified, and then of course European qualifiers in there as well. But like we did last time when we came up to the international window, it's time to take a look at the Premier League, see what's going on, see what the table looks like, talk about some of the goings on with all of the teams out there, and just dissect what we've seen so far, maybe some hits, maybe some misses as it relates to the transfer window and things like that. But here's the table, the early Premier League table, and we'll go ahead and we'll zoom in for those folks that are a little visually challenged, right? But as you can see, unfortunately, London Red on top of the table, thanks in part to Chelsea's 2-1 victory over Liverpool. That's two matches in a row that the defending champions Liverpool have lost. But we'll get to them. We'll get to them. But yeah, Arsenal. Look, they've had some injuries. Saka was out for a little while. Madueke, his replacement, is out currently with a knee issue. Odegaard's been in and out, shoulder issue, ankle issue now. Saliba missed a game. Who else? Right back Timber's been solid all year round. Their midfield has been relatively healthy, reinforced with Eze, who can also play off the left. Got Trossard and Martinelli, who have been relatively injury free, and then the rest of the back line. Gabriel's been in there, been a mainstay. Raya's been a mainstay in the goalkeeper position. Calafiore's had a good start to the season. Pretty much been keeping out Miles Lewis-Skelly from that left back spot. Timber over there on the right side has been fully fit. Ben White, I think, has been in and out with some of the injuries, but yeah, they look strong, right? You see that goals for 14, so they've been scoring goals, even though Gyökeres really hasn't hit the ground running. But mainly for them, it's been the goals against. It's been the defense that's sort of keeping them in there, right? We know that they lost to Liverpool on that free kick. Liverpool was better in the second half than Arsenal was, but Arsenal's first half was much better than Liverpool's. And then they drew that match to Man City, which maybe looking back on it now, actually maybe not even maybe, but definitely looking back on it now, you look at Arteta and you probably say, yeah, he could have went for it. He could have been a little bit more aggressive, and he did in his last match, where they won 2-0. But when we started Eze, Rice, and Odegaard in that midfield. Ultimately, Odegaard comes off injured, and Zubamendi comes in and kind of keeps things ticking. But yeah, they're looking really strong. And I've talked about Arsenal in the past, and I know some Chelsea fans won't like it, but when you look at their squad, you look at the depth of options they have, you look at the money that they've spent, you look at where they've been the last couple of years. Last year, they sort of fell off as they kind of prioritized prioritize the Champions League. But they have the squad. Do they have the manager? That's the question. To really make a strong run for this. We know Liverpool are probably, um, if not joint favorites, with the money that they've spent coming off of the back of winning the title last year and kind of running away from it. But as you can see by that goals against, they've given up 9 goals, and that defense looks shaky. Not only does their defense look shaky, but they're also very, very light in terms of numbers, right? We've seen their young guy that they got from Atalanta go down with an ACL injury. Hope everything goes smoothly with his recovery. Wishing him all the best. But behind that Van Dijk and Kanate partnership, you've got you've got uh, Joe Gomez, makeshift center back slash right back, often injured as well. You've got Endo who can play there, but not really a center back. You've got Gravenberch who played there versus Chelsea, who again not in a center back, and you're also taking him out of his natural position that he thrived in last year, where he was one of the best midfielders in the league, if not the best midfielder in the league. Uh, you've got issues at right back, Connor Bradley, not good enough yet for them to start and to really make an impact. You've got Frimpong, who is good going forward, but is also not a traditional fullback. Can't really defend, so you lose a poor defender in Trent, but you don't fully get back all of the attacking prowess that Trent brings, and you can sort of see that in Mo Salah's drop off. The left back side, Kirkes, up and down defensively, pretty good going forward, but also, has really only had one good season of Bournemouth under his belt. And then you've got Andy Robertson, whose best days are behind him. Obviously, one of the best left backs to play in this league. The records and the stats speak for itself, the longevity. But he's definitely lost a step. Got beat on the back post versus Chelsea, and Esteval tapping it in. The midfield, Gravenberch has been solid so far this year. Sabazalai has been pretty good, even though he's deputized a little bit at right back. But McAllister looks way off of it. I know he's coming back from injury, and maybe I don't even think they rushed him back. I think it's just a matter of him trying to get his legs and getting back up to form. So, so that midfield, it's got some questions. It was exposed versus Chelsea. It's been exposed throughout the season so far, right? There's been huge gaps in it, especially when you're looking at Florian Wirtz, who's been one of the bigger flops in European football so far this season. And look, it's still early, and we know Wirtz is a quality player, but his transition and his adaptation to this league isn't putting any of those um, those sayings and any of those doubts that we have in terms of Bundesliga players coming here, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, and so forth, that have struggled to make the adaptation to this league as it relates to the physicality of the play, the intensity of things, right? You don't have the time to take extra touches. You don't have the time to be cute. You got to get it. You got to drop a shoulder. Folks are physical. The refs will let you get away with a little bit more in terms of physicality and fouls. So yeah, he's struggled. We know Isak didn't have a preseason. He's looking, like he's going to take some time to sort of learn the system, gauge how how he fits in with his new teammates and things like that. And then Mo Salah on that right side looks to have aged overnight. Looks to be really, really struggling with the intensity. Chelsea really used him as an outlet in terms of playing passes around him and things like that. Playing passes over top of him and using him as the basis for making and breaking that press. We know that they don't really have a left winger. We know Gakpo's solid player, scored versus Chelsea, but there's still questions about his consistency. Rio's too young at this particular moment to really count on, and it's really only been Ekitike for them in terms of the new signings that have really hit the ground running. And you could even make a case for Ekitike being their undisputed starter at striker, right? I know he wasn't great versus Chelsea, but he looks like he's active. He's a good ball carrier. His finishing has been nice. He's been aggressive. Of all their signings, he looks like the one that has really, really taken to the league and hit the ground running. Again, another Bundesliga player, but maybe it's the his background at PSG, his upbringing there, the physicality, the technical ability that he has. Right, everyone always says the transition from the Ligue 1 to the Premier League is a lot easier than coming from Spain, coming from Germany, even coming from Italy, as we've seen. It just takes time for players to adapt. So, yeah, Liverpool's in a world of hurt right now, and it's Arne Slot who got all the plaudits last year for basically winning with Klopp's team and minimal signings. has really got his work cut out for him, and it really has to find that balance in order for make to make Liverpool tick. I do think at some point they'll get it right, but those defensive frailties, they're starting to show, and that depth. If you get an injury to Kanate, or heaven forbid, get an injury to Van Dyke, there it's going to be makeshift solutions. You're going to have to play players out of position to sort of compensate. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them. They got their work cut out, but their track record, their um, the caliber of players that they have. Didn't even mention Allison being out, but I think he's going to come back sometime in early November. They spent big money on their backup keeper, Marmashvili or something like that. So, good shot stopper, horrible with his feet, really exposed versus Chelsea. But yeah, they've got their work cut out, and they know that they can't afford to drop too many points. They've got United coming up out of the break at home. They should be winning that, but we know and we've seen in the past United have raised their game when they play the big teams and the rivals, especially Liverpool. So we'll see. Spurs, Bournemouth, both of them, good starts to the season for them. Thomas Frank, look, 4-2-1. It hasn't always been pretty with them. They've been pragmatic. There's been some questions about some of his lineups and things like that. But the start that they've had, the way that they've hit the ground running while they're still dealing with issues, right? We know Kolomawani was out last game or last couple of games. Solanke's been pretty much injured all season. They've had to find some solutions. We know Madison's out for the year. We know that Bergvall sort of stepped up. Kudus has stepped up. Finally got his goal last week. We know that left wing is a cause for concern for them, just like it is for Chelsea. But they've hit the ground running. I know Chelsea has them coming up. I think towards the back end of uh, of November. We've got them. I think Barcelona, and then maybe Arsenal in 1 week. So that's going to be a huge test for us. But we'll see. We'll see. Bournemouth, look, they put down a marker, even though they lost that first match versus Liverpool. Right, as you can see on that right hand side, second in the league in goals is Semenyo. He's a player that teams kind of sniffed around this year. Um, Saw the asking price, right? He ended up getting a renewed contract, which I think they put a release clause in there. Rumors of about 70 million pounds for him. I mean, look, he is as direct a left winger as you can get. Pace, power, but he's added that consistent finishing so far to his game this year. And it's really taken Bournemouth, who were really decimated in the transfer market, right? We're talking about losing almost five out of their or four out of their back five, right? When it comes to, they lost the keeper in Kepa, they lost their left back in Kirkes, they lost their two center backs, one to PSG, one Houston to Madrid. So really only the right back that stayed, but they've just reloaded. Iriola, fantastic manager. Whether or not they can kind of keep this pace up, remain to be seen. They have given up some goals this year, but shout out to Iriola for the job that he's done. It's been incredible. Man City, I mean, 15 goals, as you can see. Erling Haaland, 9 goals. I mean, I don't know how much more you can say about this guy, right? We hear all these things about, heard all the fuss last year about Isak being the best striker in the league because he's got the best overall game and he's pretty on the eyes. Fuck all that. Give me the guy that bangs goals, that scores goals, that puts the ball in the back of the net at a consistent rate. Erling Haaland scored like 24 goals last year, and that was a bad year for him, right? You wouldn't look back and say that was a great year for Haaland. He was hit by injuries. Man City didn't really have it ticking. At one point, they had won 1 in like 13 during the Winter Festival period. But he's just carrying them this year, and they've had injuries. Mamouche has been out. Cherky was out. They changed their goalkeeper from Trafford, who they just signed, to Donnarumma. He's really helped us solidify them. Gavardio came back from injury. We know, and really helped him and that Diaz partnership. They still don't have a right back, right? And that's a huge area for concern. They've got Kusanov, who can debutize there, but he's been out. They've got Nunes, who plays there. The left back situation is still up in the air. At Nori, as I mentioned before, is out with injury. They've been playing O'Reilly there, who's not really a left back, but sort of made that position, kind of claimed it a little bit this year. Rodri is just recently injured. So they've got a lot of moving parts. But look, Man City spent a lot of money last year in January. They reinforced in the summer, and then they'll probably go again in January coming up. But Phil Foden looks to be a player that's kind of getting back on form. Doku has really stepped up, right? They've moved Doku a little bit more centrally, and he's sort of been able to unlock a little bit more of his final ball, which was a big question mark that most folks had over him in his last couple of years. Savio still got to end product, still got to add end product to his game on that side. But one thing with Pep Guardiola is he will find solutions. He will tinker with stuff. He will try to get the best out of his players. He will throw a player into a position that you look at it on paper and say, what the hell is he thinking? And that player, 9 times out of 10, it normally works out, right? You don't win what Pep's won, especially at Man City, without, trusting him a little bit and seeing that he can get through. But yeah, they're going to be in and around it, kind of just playing in the background a little bit, let Liverpool and Arsenal kind of take the plaudits and just move along. Crystal Palace, I mean, the job that Glasner's done, lost Eze, lost Elise the year before, was this close to losing Gahey, but just fantastic coach, right? We know his contract is up at the end of the year. We know United, should they move on from Amarin, will definitely stiff around, right? We know that transition from Amarin's 3-4-3 to maybe the 3-5-2 that he plays there, or even his version of 3-4-3 in terms of Glasner. We know that they're defensively organized, right? 5 goals conceded, one of the lowest in the league. We know that that they got the big man up front, Mateta, physical, proven goal scorer. We know that the tens, Sarr is a handful, right? Lively, energetic, got legs, can get around the pitch. We know their midfield, while not on paper, you look at Adam Wharton will steal all the headlines and the plaudits, but Kamada next to him, Will Hughes next to him, just solid players. Will do a job. Don't try to do too much. Physical, compact, have a good relationship with Wharton so that the distances between them are never too far. Systematically, right? They're going to be tough. We know Munoz at that right side, bombing up and down as that right wing back is fantastic. Tyreek Mitchell has legs. So with them, it's just a matter of can they consistently score goals moving forward. So we'll see. I expect Palace. I expect Bournemouth to drop as the talent levels of the big clubs who have spent will sort of move. But yeah, so, nothing but we drew versus them. They beat Liverpool. They're always going to be a handful for big teams at Selhurst Park, but they've proven to be difficult away from home as well. Chelsea, like I mentioned, before numerous times on my channel, huge win going into the break. Dealing with a lot of injuries. Cole Palmer's out and will probably be out until November. Tosin was out. We know Levi Colwell's out. Reece James picked up a little knock, but he's going to be back. He's going to miss this international break. We know Delap's out for a while. A lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts. Getting Lavia back fit is a huge one for us. Have to solidify that midfield. Getting Caicedo some rest, who didn't go on international break with Ecuador, is a big one as well. So yeah, so look, with Chelsea, it's a matter of consistency. It's a matter of betting in these new players and hoping that some of them, like Garnacho, Gittins, will hit a good run of form and sort of lock down that left-sided position. But yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be tough. I think the schedule kind of lightens up for us as we get out of it. But there's a lot of positivity and a lot of momentum that can be gained off of this Liverpool win. So we'll see. We'll see. Everton, Sunderland, doing pretty well in terms of expected positions, right? Jack Grealish looking like one of the signings of the season so far, has been a breath of fresh air. Sort of the shackles have kind of released a little bit from him. Sunderland, although I thought they were dead versus Man United, have proven to be a pretty tough customer, right? They've got Igor scoring for them, pretty solid at the back normally, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, one of the teams have a tendency to sort of come out the gates a little bit strong and then, sort of fade a little bit as the quality kind of steps up to the forefront. But we'll see with them. United and Newcastle, look, as bad as Ruben Amorim's been, 3 wins, 1 draw, and three defeats, -2 goal difference. Got the backing from Sir Jim just recently. The talent is of a top 6, top 8 team, but the system, the questions about the system, some of the new signings haven't really hit the ground running, like Cunha, even in Buemo. Sesko's been off the mark the last couple of games, so that's a bright spot for them. Defensively at the back, not too bad. You can kind of get at their center backs if they're playing that high line, especially Harry Maguire. They've got Lemons in goal now, who had a pretty good debut, but the proof will be will and the truth will come out depending on um, how teams sort of attack him, right? Physical sends crosses in. He's a pretty decent cross collector, but the pressure of being in between the sticks at Man United can weigh heavy on anyone. So we'll see. But there, Newcastle's sort of been a team in flux, right? 9 points, which isn't a great return from them, but considering the schedule that they've had Arsenal, they've had Liverpool already, they've had Villa. Went down to I think 9 men versus Villa, or sorry, 10 men versus Villa, or it might have been maybe the vice versa. Um, we know that they threw games away late versus Arsenal, threw a game away late versus Liverpool. So really, the balance for them, right? I thought they actually finished the season with a pretty decent transfer window, right? Walter Mate looks like a really, really good signing. Tiao in defense looks like a pretty good signing. Elanga's given them some pace. Jacob Murphy was a nice get for them as well. We know their midfield is very strong with Tonali, Joe Ellington, and Bruno G. Their fullbacks, Lewis Hall's been hurt. T. Livermento just got hurt. So we know that they've got the talent. It's just a matter of them being able to close games out and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see with Newcastle. I do expect them to move up and be in and around those Champion League spots with the quality that they have already, with the money that they spent, and the depth that they've added, so that they can properly manage being in the Champions League this year, as well as also competing in the league. Brighton, Villa's been one of the disappointments so far this season. Did manage to get 2 wins so far, but they look like a squad that has really been hampered by PSR and FFP, where they weren't able to spend um, accordingly, or spend along or as much as they would like. But they still got the quality. Ollie Watkins hasn't really hit the ground running. They've got some folks in there. Daniel Malin, who's been scoring a couple of goals here and there. We know their midfield, McGinn, Onana, and the likes of Tielemans are pretty good quality, pretty good balance, and things like that. So I'd expect them to sort of have an uptick in form and sort of kind of progress along the way. But the rest of the teams, apart from the bottom three, right? You expected Burnley to be down there. West Ham's been a huge team in flux, right? Fired Graham Potter, brought in Nuno. Um, was kind of got them a solid start as they drew away to Everton, but then offered little to nothing against Arsenal, and that's an Arsenal side that they've beaten 2 times in a row at the Emirates. So we'll see how they go, but talent wise, they're lacking a little bit. Wolves as well, decimated by some of the transfers. Right, Nori's gone, Cunha's gone. Really looking like a team that could be flirting with that relegation, right? I know most folks would sort of tip some of the new folks that have come up, but Wolves, they look like a side that could really, really be struggling this year as they move forward. So, yeah, that's a nice look at the table. As we look over here, we look at the assists, right? Grealish, as I mentioned before, Kudus, Semenyo, 6 goals, 3 assists. Kudus has had a good start, just has to add a little bit of GNA, or add some more goals to his game. Dewsbury Hall, 5 yellow cards already. His last one was absolutely atrocious if you saw it. But yeah, I mean, we're taking a look at one look at some of the flops of the season, or some of the acute signings of the season. I mentioned flops being Verts there. Isak, we know what kind of quality he has. He's proven in this league. It's just a matter of him getting that fitness, getting used to his new surroundings. Zubimendi hit the ground running for Arsenal. Looks like a very, very good signing. Chipped in with a couple of goals. The pace of the league, the intensity of the league doesn't look like it's a little bit too much for him. So done like I said, done very well. We know what kind of quality Eze has been. Joined a little bit late, so he really didn't have a chance to really kind of bed in, but he has already played on the left wing, has already sort of played it centrally as an 8 or as a 10 for Arsenal. Who Eze will bring exactly what he brings. Spurs, like I mentioned before, I mentioned Kudus. Simmons hasn't really hit the ground running too much, but he's still a good player. Got to add that GNA to his. Got to add that end product. Got to pick up a little bit of that creative spark. Chelsea, some of the new signings, Esteval looks to be a stud. Hato came in last game, played very well. But still, a lot of their signings haven't really been thrown into the fire like that just yet. But with the injury situations, we definitely could see it. Talked a bit about United's signing so far. Talked about Everton and Jack Grealish being one of the better signings out there. But yeah, there's um, a lot of good players that have made the jump to this league that really haven't hit the ground running yet. You know, we all know all the memes, the 007s, 008s, 009s, and things like that. But you know, you do have to give folks a little bit of time. Apart from those folks like Cunha who have already proved it in this league, where you expect them to, you know, he's had a full preseason, you expect him to hit the ground running, and you know the quality he has. But you know, for me, if we're speaking honest, he's probably a byproduct of not fitting into the system as well as most folks thought he would. Right? We thought because Wolves play that 3-4-3 that he'd do it, but the problem I see so far with Cunha is him and Bruno are trying to pick up the ball in the same positions, right? And they're also often too too congested in where they want to do their damage. And you know, Cunha's a player that likes to drop deep and carry the ball. Bruno's a player that likes to find the ball, drop deep, and then try to play those Hollywood passes, high risk, high reward type of deals. So we'll see. But you know, still long season. Got one, like I said, we got one more break coming up. We've got a lot of football to be played. Starting to pick up with the competitions. Right, we've got Carabao Cup fourth round or fifth round coming up. Next week we've got the Champions League as well. So once the international break is over, I know Chelsea goes away to Forest, Ajax at home, and then a match on the weekend. So yeah, it's going to be hot. It's going to be heavy. We're going to have you covered here. Make sure you guys hit that like. Make sure you hit that subscribe. Turn those notifications on. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who's been your surprise team of the season so far? Your disappointment of the season? Who's been your best signing so far for your club or for the league in general? Flops of the season, and let me know, has the start of the season, the first 7 games, has it changed your outlook? Has it changed your prediction? Do you still going with who you think is going to win? Going to lift that trophy at the end of the season? But yeah, just let me know. Let me know. Peace.